Welcome to the XR Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Diana Olenik, and on this show, we dive into the cutting edge worlds of XR, Web3, and artificial intelligence with the brightest minds in the industry, bringing you exclusive insights and game changing conversations that will revolutionize your understanding of the future. Today, we have an extraordinary guest who is a true visionary in the world of XR. Julian Park is the co founder and CEO of Bezel, a revolutionary platform that is transforming the way designers and creatives collaborate in virtual spaces. Julian has a proven track record in the XR industry, having previously served as an engineering leader at Oculus, where he oversaw key projects in VR multitasking and UI frameworks. Now with Bezel, he's taking his expertise to the next level, unlocking new dimensions of creativity and unleashing the potential of virtual spaces as a canvas for collaborative design. In this episode, you'll discover how Julian and his team at Bezel are pushing the boundaries of spatial design, enabling designers, artists, and innovators to work together in real time on a spatial 3D canvas regardless of their physical location. You learn how Bezel's intuitive interface and powerful design tools are transforming the way teams prototype and iterate their ideas in a collaborative environment. I can't wait to begin this amazing episode. Let's do it. Thank you so much, Julian, for being here today. We're super excited. Please let us know how are things going right now in California.
Yeah, California, pretty sunny, but as usual, San Francisco is always a little foggy. So I think it's one of those days.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. That's an interesting thing. I always imagine California super bright and shiny and people skating, the rollerblades.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that image is coming from SoCal, but in NorCal, which is
Oh,
where San Francisco is, it's a lot of
okay.
fog and cold days as well.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So we're super excited and we're going to talk a lot about 3D design.
yeah,
All designers out there, put attention. Um, Bezel is a company that has been working immensely in this creation of this tool. And so today we'd like to hear from you, Julian, about your background, like
yeah.
all the stuff that happened before creating Bezel and why did you create it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, happy to share. So previously, I worked at Oculus, now called Meta, for about 4 years or so. And during that time, I was on the Quest OS side of things. So a lot of the panel app architecture or the UI frameworks that go inside how the apps that float around you when you put on your VR headset, like how they all work and look and stuff like that. So I was fortunate enough to work a lot with talented designers in the org as well, building out the Quest 1 and Quest 2 products. And they would use tools like Figma to kind of iterate on the app UI and let's see how all the buttons are located and how they work from a UX flow. And oftentimes in a lot of meetings when we would be in talking with PMs and managers, they would ask, hey, how do I view these designs in headset? Right? So beyond the 2D rectangles you see on your screen, how do I go, other than just imagining it in my head, how do I actually experience it in 3D in the headset before we build it and ship it to customers? So from that in mind, the answer would be, well, we could, but like we would have to partner with like a Unity developer or a prototyper to build out a whole interactive experience and like script it and like export and then like distribute that package with people's headsets in the org. And that whole process was like a multi-week nightmare, right? So Bezel was really born out of that frustration where we saw an opportunity to build an easier design tool to learn for 3D and AR VR that kind of put the superpowers in the designer's hands. And they're the ones who are able now to really take their Figma designs or whatever it may be into 3D interactive prototype. And we've launched our public beta a couple months ago, but we've now taken that process from a couple weeks to a couple minutes. So that's kind of the value that we've been providing so far.
Yeah, that's super exciting. And definitely when we are in a company environment, we are one of the pieces that go, throughout all the workflow, all the process. How was that shift that you had to make from thinking as just the designer and now creating a platform? Did you experience any shift and how did you navigate that?
Yeah, so definitely building out your own design tool is a whole different task than doing design work at a company. And I think we really have to take a step back and look at the market in general and then see, okay, what are the unique skill sets that we can bring into the space so that other designers like ourselves, I mean, I do have like more of an engineering background, but I think I also worked a lot with designers who kind of taught me how to think more like a designer, and overall kind of realize that, at the end of the day, because we fortunately have firsthand experience of the pain points that these people in the orgs have been facing so far, we had the basic outline of a vision that we had for the product to be in the future. And I think that really anchored us and acted as our North Star over the past year or so as we've been building out the product. Because, as you might know, it takes a lot more user research and interviews and just kind of thought analysis and synthesizing to align on a product that is worth building. So, yeah, a lot of talking with customers and users, a lot of talking with even non-designers, because that's part of what Bezel is doing. Because if you're working on a local game engine that you downloaded, that's not really accessible for a lot of non-designers adjacent to those people. So if I'm a manager who wants to participate in the review process of the product prototype so far, I'm not going to download a game engine just to play that. I might watch a video on it, but it's not as immersive as the 3D experience. So we talked to a lot of different folks at different companies and kind of aligned on what we're building right now.
Yeah, thank you. Just as in the design process, bringing together this solution for this problem. It starts with the ideation process and analyzing the market, as you mentioned. How is the point where you decide, okay, it's time, it's an evident problem that is there, we might have the solution. How do you start assembling a team, like people to, buy in your idea and then come together? How was that process for you?
Yeah, so fortunately, I co-founded the company with Cecilia, who is coming from a design background at Oculus, as well as Dennis, who is coming from a more prototyping engineering background at Oculus. So the three of us kind of left together to build this new tool. And I think that alone provided enough confidence and conviction in the team around okay, more than one or two people think that this is an important tool to build for this industry right now. So I think that tailwind also helped encourage a lot more people outside the company. So we have our first engineer from Adobe, and he worked on a lot of different 3D products that goes in the Adobe Creative Suite today, as well as different engineers from Samsung, Autodesk, Mural, and so on. So I think gathering the people has been quite a process over the past year and a half of the company's lifespan. But with every person we add on, that they're excited to be, to contribute to an early stage startup and see what kind of tool we can build together. So I mean, so far it's been super fun.
Yeah, I imagine. Thank you for sharing that particular aspect of managing teams, because that is something that people, wonder, how was all of this created? So then you decide, and interestingly, you decide that you want the tool in a web browser. Why? And how did you create that actually?
Yeah.
What tools did you use for the web browser?
Yeah, no, for sure. If there's anything I learned by being a huge fan of the web and the browser over the past decade or so, it's that you don't want to bet against it, because the browser technologies are improving, day by day, and also we're seeing a bunch of different applications being web native because that offers sort of multiplayer real-time collaboration that a lot of local apps in the past, all the incumbents have not been able to catch up to. And I think it also offers a lot of flexibility in the cross-device nature of the design workflow. And what I mean by that is, especially for 3D designers who are working for like an AR, VR type of experience, they might not want to be inside the headset all day long, right? Because it's either tiring on their face to have that on the whole time, or the battery runs out, or the controllers only have like 6 buttons on them, like that kind of stuff. So I think at the end of the day, we wanted to use the web so that it acts as a hybrid platform that is able to support a cross-device workflow. So when you're on your desktop computer or laptop, which is probably the most common place that people spend their time on the day to day, we wanted that to be the place where they can put together a 3D design, just with that precision that they would on a typical desktop tool. And then once it's ready to be experienced inside the headset, they would put on their Quest or their different headset to just kind of experience that themselves. And so it becomes this hybrid experience that is only possible through WebXR, because that is technology that we're relying on the browser.
Yeah, that's super useful because even myself, when attempting to create experiences in AR and VR, trying to deal with the UIs was a very big problem. And also many designers find themselves almost like they have to become a little bit of a coder to make things work in an engine like Unity, for example, to make the UIs work. And that is something that prevents us to actually fulfill a project or to actually create a prototype even. So that is super an interesting solution. And thank you for sharing how is that your thinking process work to create it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, sorry, yeah, it was kind of like, instead
ahead.
of downloading a whole game engine to like script a whole experience with like C# or, when all you really need is a simple drag and drop type of design tool that you would just open on any website on the browser, to put together this type of 3D or AR, VR experience, which Bezel requires zero coding and none of that sort of technical knowledge that people need. So
yeah. And also, even when attempting to use the game engine alone for this purpose, we found out many times that the actual results were not that beautiful, like not that easy to make it like so as the iOS, let's say, UIs look very beautiful and easy to navigate. So that's great. And speaking about for someone is interested, because there are many designers that come from the world of 2D, and designing in 3D is maybe there are new aspects of that. I wonder if you could please help us to take us through the 3D design workflow process so people understand, first of all, about 3D, and first of all, and second, maybe how Bezel ties into the solution.
Yeah. So, 3D design is a pretty broad umbrella of a lot of different workflows and industries. We are currently focused on sort of the virtual side of things. I think, so the physical side being like architecture or like CAD, or, manufacturing, so that kind of stuff, industrial design. And then the virtual side, being more of like the AR, VR space as we're talking about, or like gaming is also a big one, or sort of the more like animation film side of things. More recently, there's been more blurring of the lines between the two, with more interdisciplinary research products and projects going on. But right now, the 3D design workflow for a lot of the people, on the virtual side of things is, oftentimes you use a hodgepodge of multiple tools to get the job done today. So you would use maybe, for example, something like Blender to get the 3D models in and then kind of export that into a different platform, like a game engine that you would use to kind of put the models together and like animate them or like put them together. If you're more coming from like a 3D, like XR design type of workflow, then they would probably use something like Figma or a different 2D design tool to kind of put together these UIs that and panels that people would interact with in space. Because at the end of the day, design, a lot of it is dealing with how to convey and present information to the user in the best ways possible. So when we're conveying information, it oftentimes includes text, and 3D text isn't really a good practice when you're reading it in VR or AR. You kind of want text to be on a 2D panel as you would hold up a piece of paper, and kind of be in a spatial environment with that type of content in front of you. So yeah, I think it's just a mixture of all these different tools around 2D, UI panels in the 3D design experience that you want to, hook up like click interactions with, as well as like 3D models, if you need them from like Blender or different types of modeling tools as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, definitely. Sometimes when we think about designing, when we come to think about creating apps or games, etc., we just limit only to the interfaces, just the panels. But there is something else, right? Now we have objects and things that the user is going to be interacting with, which is also the purpose of Bezel, like allowing people to create prototypes in order to be able to create these digital assets and interact with them. So
Yeah.
in terms of when creating Bezel, what foundation did you use for that? What tools did you use to create Bezel?
Yeah, so we're completely based on a web stack. So kind of the standard like React, TypeScript setup on the web, and we have a bunch of server side logic and functions on AWS as well. So we kind of anchor everything on relatively straightforward tech stacks, but we've done a lot of work to like optimize the 3D scene experience for VR headset rendering and making sure that the graphics on WebGL is performant enough and accessible enough for us to manipulate over time in the scene as well. So a lot of work around geometry and integrating the 3D and 2D sides of the design tool. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have been pretty happy with the performance of the web app on both their desktop and their headsets browser. So we'll just build success on that.
I think that is amazing. Like having a web based tool like this is, we haven't seen it, like not it's not that simple as well. So it's impressive that in such a short amount of time all of this was available for designers now. And speaking about designers, what in your opinion are some of the most common mistakes that designers make when approaching 3D?
Let's see. I think one thing that people miss a lot is that when they're experiencing a design content in especially on a headset for AR VR purposes, I think it's easy to overcomplicate the user flow or overcomplicate the number of options that the user can take. But if you kind of remember the early days of like mobile, like iPhone 1 and like sort of like the early days, it was difficult to convey complex user flows and complex application logic because there weren't a lot of like industry standards or design patterns established for the platform yet. So you would often end up with like single button actions or like things that are simple enough for people to understand, and that became used a lot. And I think there's a similar sort of sentiment within the XR industry where I think a lot of times people come from the game and like the game industry backgrounds, or people are trying to set up something that might be a bit too complicated to get the job done inside 3D. And so I think having a sort of almost oversimplifying perspective to the number of things and the number of actions you expose to the user in the 3D content, I think is super important so that people don't get lost when they start the experience or they just don't know what to do from here.
Yeah.
But I'm sure like over time, this will improve because kind of like mobile apps, over time, these design patterns evolved and became more standardized or become for people to kind of expect what to do with an app.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that all of these topics are very important because, in my own opinion, also the way that we're seeing all of these changes in the world with all of this technology has been rapidly accelerating. At some point, do you agree that the inclusion also of artificial intelligence models would be necessary in an app like Bezel as well?
Yeah, so we actually get this question quite often just because of the attention to AI these days. But
Yes.
I think we don't want to market Bezel as like an AI tool per se,
Right.
but we do use some versions of AI models as well as we planning for a more sort of complicated,
Mhm.
complex AI models as well. So, for example, right now we have a command center that inside the UI of Bezel, people can interact with the app. So if they type in a certain word, all they got to do is like press the space bar to like activate the command inside the app, kind of inspired from like the Rhino side of things for 3D apps. But for example, if you type in like B for box, that also kind of takes in and the command and then draws the box in front of you. But if you
Mm.
also type in like cube, which is like a synonym but close enough word label, that also operates to like draw a box. So that's sort of like one avenue of like AI becoming more of a thing in Bezel. I think the other side is more around like 3D, maybe like asset generation or even like 3D asset
Mhm.
search
Yeah.
processes where like you can kind of see, oh, if I want to add a like a commonplace furniture object in the scene, what if we could kind of have a quick search for it inside the editor and then you just drag and drop and then you go from imagination to reality pretty
Mhm.
quickly.
Yeah, actually speaking about imagination, I imagine like Mid Journey. I
Yeah,
imagine you put the headset and then you start talking and
yeah,
saying, box, I need a box of these dimensions. And also one thing that I think that is part of the future of UI or design in this field is voice voice commands, right?
yeah,
Replacing some interfaces. I think that that would be amazing, being able to see this type of enhancements. And because for the user, as from our point of view, having to deal with so many screens that came from a 2D world might not be as intuitive as it is a 3D world that simulates more the real, where we don't necessarily need to be using screens. We just talk naturally, right? So I
right.
think that that's part of the evolution of design. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think voice is going to be, I mean, have been and will be an important part of input to these machines.
Mm.
I think that being said, there will always be like a non-voice way of interacting with these apps, just because
Mhm.
whether it's from an accessibility standpoint or a speed standpoint,
Yeah.
from a productivity day-to-day perspective, I would just want to type in something as opposed to talk to my computer. I think that's like there's some like fine lines between what's really interesting to imagine, which obviously is important, but at the same
Mhm.
time, what people usually end up doing sort of day to day. So I think
Yeah.
at Bezel,
Mhm.
we're really trying to balance the two and like trying to figure out, okay, like what is really cool and different, but at the same time, something that people can stick to and like really use every single day. So
Yeah, amazing. So what are some of examples of great prototypes that people have been building in Vessel?
yeah. So actually, we have a showcase page on our website right now. So if you go to bezel.it slash showcase, you'll be able to find out what kind of prototypes were being made in Bezel so far. We have a bunch of like XR scenes that you can interact with and pass through on your headset. We have some example like VR museums that
Yeah.
someone made, which is pretty cool to check out as well. You can kind of like walk around it in VR or just like travel through it on your desktop as well. We have some like presentations that the 3D presentations that demonstrate different UI prototypes and UI panels that you can also interact with. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you can build in Bezel right now, and I've seen some pretty cool stuff that are being made and designed at companies these days.
That sounds super, super exciting. Of
Yeah.
course, we are inviting everybody to go and check Bezel.it and to give a try, because it is an app that you can use. It's the interactivity, all the accessibility is there in the web browser, as well as if you're wearing the headset, you can still also use it, which is pretty amazing because you can test right away, right? Like it saves a lot of time and headaches.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is an exciting moment in the history of sort of spatial computing and how tools have been evolving to better meet the needs of the designer who, aren't necessarily technical, and they want to be able to create really cool spatial designs and spatial prototypes for XR. And I think, Bezel hopefully is playing a key role in this side of history.
Amazing, yes. So if I am building something in Unity, like to finish the product, and I want to create the prototype in Bezel, how can I transfer that to Unity?
Yeah, so we're actually actively working on a plugin that exports all of your Bezel content into Unity, so you can start there and not have to rebuild stuff in the process, which is super important.
Yes, super, super amazing. So would you like to just let us know some of like you already mentioned some, but if you have any feature stuff that you'd like to say right now about what is coming or your vision, if you'd like to share something before we go, what that would be?
Yeah, we have a lot more exciting features coming on the XR side. So without being too specific, we have some features around making the XR experience just much easier to get into on your headset, and then being able to interact with things in a bit more granularity and depth than what we currently do with state animations. So we have a lot coming there, and then more sort of integrations with existing tools that people use today, so that it's more interoperable through Bezel as well. And I think that's an exciting future.
Wow, that sounds super amazing. We're super, super excited to hear all of that. And of course, we're going to be following on the growth, the expansion, the innovations that you're bringing. I think that your app is going to grow super fast. And of course, we all wish you that. If you ever have anything to share with us, please tag us so we can reshare as well, because this is something that maybe not many designers at this point know, but they will. And the sooner that we know, the better, because we can start using the tool, getting familiar, and start creating projects for like faster completion, which is very, very important for designers. Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm also super excited to see what people create on Bezel. The world is 3D, so if you're a designer, 3D is the limit of like what you could create. And I think it's exciting to see things go beyond 2D and into 3D.
Yeah, thank you so much, Julian. And is there anything else that you wish I had asked you today? Is there anything else that maybe we're missing?
No, I think I've spoken a lot more about myself and the company than I usually do already. So I think this might be good.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Yeah, we can keep in contact, and everybody interested, please follow the social media accounts at Bezel to be able to know when all of these features are coming up. I believe you also have a Discord, right?
Yeah.
So it's called Bezel.
We have a lot of people asking questions or giving feedback on how to improve the tool as well. Like, we know there's a long way to go. This is just the beginning on what the product is. So I would love to hear any thoughts around how we can make it better for your workflows.
Yeah, there are many resources there in the page. Again, is Bezel.it, and to follow them in all social media and on Discord to get additional support and questions. Yeah, that's been amazing. Thank you so much, Julian, for your kindness today at sharing your insights, your journey, everything that you've been doing. And we're going to be keeping in contact to learn more about the new features that you're going to be releasing with Bezel.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks, Diana.
Thank you so much, and see you in the next episode. Bye for now.